Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
These shows are brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. Well, speaking of friends, Heidi, we have some great friends on our show today, don't we?
Yes, I'm excited for the show.
And we golfed with one of them today. Yesterday.
We did, which was nice.
Another one has been a good friend forever, Tanya Lord, great friend, and Christine Duminiak.
Yep, Christine Duminiak and Tanya Lord. And we've known Tanya for many, many years and worked with her, Dr. Tanya Lord. So yes, we'll be talking with both of them today about redefining ourselves after multiple losses, because both of these guests today have had multiple losses in their lives. And so I think it's really important for people out there that have had more than one loss to know that you can redefine yourself and you can go on to find hope again and do incredible things with your life despite a lot of loss.
And I know you both had miscarriages, and Christine's had her parents die, and has written a book on after-death communication, which we are excited about because I know she talks about her in-laws appearing to her, right? And so it's after-death communication, God's gift of love, and Tanya speaks all over the United States.
Yes, so Tanya is a national speaker. She is Dr. Tanya Lord. I want to get that right because it's important. She is the co-founder of the Grief Toolbox. See, I'm reading this even though I know her because she does a lot of things. She is the director for the patient and family engagement at Foundation for Healthy Communities. Correct? Okay. A patient advocate, and she goes into hospitals all over the country and teaches doctors and staff, etc., how to have better patient communication. I know I'm simplifying it here. She is a fabulous speaker.
And that's connected with her son, Noah, dying of medical error.
Yes.
And Christine, you've done 10 books? Is that how many? 5, 10?
No, 5.
5.
But 10's good.
Whoa.
I like that sound.
And
I'll work towards that goal.
and really some wonderful books about our natural losses, because you talk about grandma, is it grandpa or grandma?
Grammy visits from heaven, Grandpa visits from heaven.
Children in grief.
Heaven talks to children, which is all about children's spiritual experiences, because they have a gift to see and hear spirits. Sometimes they'll say, why aren't you talking to Grammy? She's walking across the room, and thinking so rude, they can't tell the difference between a spirit and a real person, the younger that they are. But they help us to know that our loved ones are still with us.
Yeah, and children definitely have that ability to be very perceptive to that. You also are the radio show host for the Angels radio show.
Ask the Angels radio.
Ask the Angels, and you've done a lot of media. I know, like stuff on NBC and ABC and CBS. Anyway, if you Google her, you'll see a lot of those clips.
And both of these guys are on YouTubes.
They're both on Open to Hope YouTubes, and they're both part of the International Grief Institute, which we were also a member of. So, yes, I'm excited to talk to them today about their own journey and how they found hope.
Absolutely. And Tanya, let's start with you, because Noah died of, he had tonsillectomy, right? He was how old?
4.5.
4.5, and died of
Hemorrhage.
Yeah, hemorrhage at home, right?
At home, after a series of medical errors.
And so you go around and are kind of dealing. I mean, you went back to school, right, after he died, and you got your master's degree, and then you got your PhD. And you've done it in an area where you can help people to not make those kinds of mistakes again, right?
Right. So my master's is in public health, and my PhD is officially clinical and population health research.
Okay, so Mom, what I think is interesting about this is that Tanya is very unique because she has one foot in the personal world and one foot in the professional world. And I think most people would have either one foot in one or one foot in the other. So it's amazing what she can bring to these hospitals, you know, and how you can bridge the gap between the people on the front lines that are the patients and then the staff, because you have your foot in both places. You've been that family, and now you're the professional.
I think that's very, very true. So I'm always one of them, as opposed to being, you know, being on one side or the other. I can talk with clinicians from a professional aspect, not that I'm a clinician, but from that professional space, and I can speak with patients, because no matter what their story is, my story with Noah is as significant. and so I can relate to where they are.
You know, it's interesting to me because I have a background in nursing, and one of the things that's going on here is the fact that the medical community now realizes that if they work with the families, they won't get sued.
There's a lot of truth
And there's
to that.
a huge movement to get doctors to listen, to be, you know, it's not so great why it's happening, but the important thing is it is happening. It is happening, and I think that's absolutely amazing that you're around doing that. Well, Christine, you really speak all over about these afterlife communication. It's
Right,
very
right.
big.
And this has nothing to do with mediumship or being a psychic. These are direct personal signs that people get from their loved ones. And how I got into this field was my dead in-law showed up in my bedroom one night and kept repeating their visits.
And I don't know if that was a blessing or a nightmare.
I love them. But I love them, but I didn't want them to move in with me after death. So I did find out what this was all about, and I was noticing that people who got an afterlife sign were so much more at peace with the passing of their loved ones. But I found that so many people were desperate to get a sign.
Yes.
They just felt like they needed to know their loved one was okay. They needed that sign. And so I had founded, after realizing that there was a need, I founded a group called Prayer Wave for After Death Communication, which is an internet grief support and prayer group. And every Friday we pray for others to get an afterlife sign from their loved ones.
Oh, interesting.
And the group prayer has been phenomenal. It just changed everything. People were getting signs that never got signs before. People who were thinking about committing suicide would contact me later and say, you know, I was thinking about taking my own life, and then I joined your group and I got a sign, and now I feel so differently. I realize that my loved one is still part of my life. They can still see and hear me. And I guess that's the most important thing I want people to know, is that your loved one has not gone off on into a black hole. They're like an angel on your shoulder. They love it when you talk to them. They'll try and give you a sign to let you know that they can still see and hear you, and they're a huge part of your life, guiding you. And I think that means everything when you know that you can still write them letters, talk to them out loud, take them on vacation, take them to a show, and they're enjoying it with you. And it just changes everything from sadness to joy.
I like the fact that you're not talking about paying a medium or anything like that. You're talking about doing it on your own. Has that been your experience, Tanya? Have you had any connections with your son?
I have had several. Probably one of the most significant was we had returned from Russia with our other two sons that we adopted from Russia. And at the time, so I walked into the bedroom, and we had two great brothers. They were awesome, but spoke no English, were active boys. And I had a moment of quiet in the bedroom as I was going to unpack our suitcase. And I had a moment of kind of, what have we done here exactly? And when I opened the suitcase, right on top of it was December 17th when we got home with them. And right on top was this little eraser with a Santa Claus, and it said Merry Christmas. And I recognized it from the Christmas that Noah died, the last Christmas. So this was several years later that we had used those to make little poppers, Christmas poppers. So for some reason I remembered it, and it was right on top. And this was new luggage, new clothes. Years later, there was no
amazing.
explanation. And I felt like it was just Noah and...
You got a gift for two other kids.
Yes.
Yes, and saying, this is okay.
It's going to be good for you.
He was giving you his blessing, in a way.
Yeah,
I love that
saying
story.
and welcoming his brothers.
I love that story.
That's so sweet. I could have used your story in my book.
Next one.
Do you hear any of this at the hospital when you're around?
I do. What I hear most in the hospitals is at end of life, where people are being visited by relatives that have moved on, and really making a peaceful transition.
That's wonderful. What a gift.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And people kind of like to deny that in the scientific world, don't they?
They do. They completely, they deny so much, whether it's the science and afterlife, etc. But when you actually get people one-on-one, usually they've had some kind of experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're a scientist there in the setting, and you hear those stories.
Yeah.
It's hard to deny. People run the other way if they hear them. Well, you're a poet too, and I want to talk to you both about the other things you're doing with your website and all that kind of thing. And Tanya, talk about the Grief Toolbox, because you have had so many people on her Facebook site for the Grief Toolbox because they love your poetry.
Yes.
Well, I think, so my mother died about 7 years after Noah, and she was really, she was always remembered his birthday, always remembered the anniversary, was always there for us. And when she died, I found a different kind of voice. So I found my voice in healthcare when Noah died, and when she died, she was a poet, a beatnik poet. So meaning mostly that she wrote poems that nobody quite understood, but we were all too scared to be like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so I found a different kind of voice. So when we started the Grief Toolbox, we needed content, and every morning I would wake up, 4 or 5 a.m. and out of me would come these poems. And sometimes I would struggle with pieces of it, but sometimes they just flowed out. So for example, the poem that I wrote for Open to Hope, I was thinking about it and thinking about it. One time I sat down and I need to write this poem, I want to write it, which isn't normally how and it wouldn't come. 3 hours I sat writing different stanzas. Then I went to bed a few nights later, and I woke up, sat down, and out it came. So
Is that fabulous to have a poem for Open to Hope from the famous Tanya Lord?
I love it. And Tanya just got off a grief cruise, and my son Alexander was on it, and he said it was amazing because you read it on that cruise.
Oh, that's right, he did
Yes.
hear
I
it.
love it.
Well, I think we're going to a clip of it.
When you are open to hope, the shadows that threaten in the darkest night move slowly away in hope's eternal light. When you are open to hope, the first steps you take, unsteady and unsure, honor a love not lost, built steady and pure. When you are open to hope, you can feel the love of those who have gone. You can sense their presence in each morning's dawn. When you are open to hope, the anguish of grief, all the pain and the sorrow, slowly make room for a brighter tomorrow. When you are open to hope. And if there comes a time when it's difficult to cope, lean on us, borrow our strength, because we are open to hope.
Tanya, that was fabulous. Thank you so much.
But what I really love about it is how you keep referencing the idea of being open to hope. And when we first we're trying to decide what we wanted to name our foundation, we finally came up with the name Open to Hope, because we don't want to tell people to be hopeful after a loss, because that minimizes people's loss and that irritates people. We want to just inspire people to be open to the idea that someday they might have hope again, and that's why we bring on guests like you, so that they might see you and say, you know what, wow, maybe someday I can be open to hope. And I think that's what your poem is really all about. So thank you so much, Tanya.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Christine, people also want to believe that they have that connection, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And talk to us about what you're doing and your website and everything that's going on.
Okay,
for you.
I just wanted to interject about her mother's inspirational words through her poem. That's an afterlife contact also.
Wow.
The words, her mother was the poet, and she downloaded that information to help her with her poem. So it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
You got into this because of your in-laws.
I did.
Were you open to anything like this before?
No. My eyes
about
would
that.
glaze over when people would talk about, they got a visit and a dream, and I'd say, okay. And I was just trying to be polite. But when dead people show up in your bedroom, it kind of changes your world,
Yeah.
Oh,
That would change
I
my
get it
world.
now. Yes. So, and then 2 years later, my dad had passed after this happened, and I was already giving grief support to people. And one of the nicest things that ever happened to me, and the most healing, was that my dad visited right away after he passed with Frank Sinatra songs, because when I stayed in his bedroom towards the end in the hospital, room, I took a Frank Sinatra tape and played it all night long for him.
I love that.
So we came back when the first thing was a Frank Sinatra song that he was playing for me. And then everywhere I went, I would hear Frank Sinatra songs in the most unlikely places, you know, like little supermarket stores and just strange places that were not Italian restaurants, okay? Frank Sinatra was showing up. And that's a type of
Some
sign.
music and all those kinds of
absolutely.
things.
If you happen to turn on your radio and a song that connects you to your loved one, that's a type of sign because you turned it on at that instant and they wanted you to hear, you know, that they were there with you. So, so what else am I doing?
Well, talk to us about the international grief group that you're involved with.
Well, that's really Linda Cheldon Fell's group, and
And you're involved with it too.
And so are we.
And Glenn.
and we're very honored to be speakers and, you know, different courses that they're offering at the International Grief
But you've done a
Institute.
webinar there, right?
I've done a webinar, yes.
And what did you do it on?
After death communications,
Of course.
That's my specialty, bereavement support.
Go on, Mom.
Go ahead. I was just going to say you've been on a ton of TV.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
whatever,
Fox
people
and
love this.
Friends, which was they were very open to it on
Yeah.
Easter.
that's great.
Fox and Friends, which was a perfect time to talk about after-death science,
Yeah.
because a lot of shows are they stay away from it. They
Yes.
want to be more secular and go with the science aspect instead of the spiritual aspect. And all my work really is between like you and God. I found that, and in my own case too, but so many other people who I've counseled, was without God, they really would not be able to get through the situation they got through. And there's such a difference with the people that I come in contact with who hold God's hand through a tragedy, where the other people are always floundering and they never can accept it, they never feel at peace. And the people that seem to hold God's hand find that peace that we all want to have after a loss.
Christine, let me ask you something. So when you say hold God's hand, you mean just believe in a power higher than themselves? Is
Talk to the power
Okay.
that's higher than
Okay,
you.
I like that idea.
Communicate, tell them what you need.
Yeah.
I remember when my mother passed, it was my second parent, because my dad had passed, and the pain, I could hardly breathe. And this prayer just came to me. I said, "Dear Jesus, please replace my heart's sorrow with your joy." It was the only thing I could really get out. And every time I said that, the pain would lessen and lessen and lessen. In 2 weeks, that pain left me.
Wow.
I miss my mother tremendously, but that pain where I couldn't
It's almost
breathe.
like a meditation.
Well, I
when you're
believe
doing
that
that.
my mother wanted me to be happy,
Yeah.
and I believe that God wanted me to be happy, and I wanted to be happy. And I
Right.
didn't feel guilty about being happy. A lot of people do. They're worried that someone will think that they're not really grieving, that they miss them, and I don't believe that at all. I feel like they're having a great time up there, and they want us to have a good time, and why shouldn't we, you know? So
Does the God factor come up for you, Tanya?
It comes up in, I guess, a little bit different ways. I did find a faith after Noah died. I was raised by atheists, so, but I think that there's, what I find with a lot of the people that I have met, other bereaved parents, I think it can go either way, right? So people can grab hold of their faith, or they start to question their faith. But I think as we're talking about sort of finding our different path, I think that becomes an important piece of it. I think it's a time when the world is so confusing, it's the perfect time to really reconnect with what do we believe or what do we not believe anymore, and how do we navigate.
And like you said, Tanya, some people lose their faith and they get angry at God. We've had a lot of people on and a lot of clergy on that have said, that's okay, God can handle it, you can be angry. And then some people like me, rather than reaching out to maybe an organized religion, I reached out to organizations and friends and support and a higher power. So just, for me, the biggest takeaway is to not be isolated, to not be out there alone, whether it be an organization you're reaching out to or a higher power, something other than yourself, because otherwise it can be very isolating and lonely, and you can feel like you're not normal. And you know, when you connect with people and we all connect together, we're like, okay, I'm not crazy. Now I know what I'm going through is normal grief, but I needed to get around other people who had had a loss to realize that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I always say that the people who aren't watching shows or aren't going to conferences or aren't meeting up with friends, or, you know, if they're isolating, it can be really a difficult thing. And I know with the internet it's great. Give us your Grief Toolbox site. It's called the Grief Toolbox.
Grieftoolbox.com.
.com is a place where you can find articles, you can
There's
find your poetry.
articles.
You've got your Facebook page.
There's Facebook, there's articles, you'll find people having discussions, you'll find all kinds of resources, books. Yeah, I think.
And where else can people find you, Tanya? If they want you to come and work with them in their organizations, in their hospitals, because I know you work all over the country. Where can they contact you? Where can they get a hold of you?
So that would be Tanya Lord at Comcast.net is an email. I don't have a website yet, which is something that I'm working on, but TanyaLord.com.
All right.
I mean .net.
TanyaLord.net.
Sorry, Tanya Lord at Comcast.net.
Okay.
We'll have it under your picture.
Yes.
You can see that. Christina, tell us what you've got. All your books. We've got those there. Tell us about your website, and also you're presenting.
Yes, I'll be presenting at the Compassion of Friends in July, so
All right.
come on.
As will Tanya, so everybody come.
Yes,
Yeah, as will we.
As will we. Come on.
Yeah.
And so my website is ChristineDuminiak.com. And once you link onto there, you can also find the Facebook group where we will pray for you to get an afterlife sign. And you can share your experiences in a safe place where people will celebrate with you and not make you feel like you're hallucinating or you're crazy, that they'll be really happy for you. And miracles happen when people pray for you.
Yeah.
So.
And you know, Stanford did a research study on this, and you probably know this, and they found that they had a control group that wasn't prayed for and one that was, and the people that were prayed for that didn't even know they were being prayed for recovered quicker.
That's right.
It is evident. There's evidence-based research out there, as Tanya is saying, yes, right? Which is amazing to me.
Definitely,
I
yeah.
love it, because I've always believed in the power of prayer, and now the evidence supports it.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. And you know, in your own personal life, when you feel like that, what a change is made if someone prays for you or you pray for yourself. It's okay to pray for yourself, by the way. It just connects you, makes you feel closer to God if you,
I love it.
if you pray for yourself.
Although I said to my pastor after my son was killed, the theology didn't help me at all. The people were great. He said, "What do you think the religion is?"
It's the people.
It's more than a book.
It's more than books. So if you had one piece of advice for us to close the show for somebody who's had a loss, and what would it be?
I think with every loss, there's some aspect of it that we ruminate over or think about a lot, or kind of not get stuck on, but stuck on thinking about it. And for me, with Noah's death, it was how do healthy children have tonsillectomies and not survive it? And I couldn't let go of that. And so when you find yourself not able to let go of something, when you're ready, see what you can do to address it. We've seen so many great things happen, right? Mothers Against Drunk Driving, stop signs that go up where they needed to be, stoplights, etc. And you know, I think you said in the beginning of the show that I've done this despite the losses that I've had, but I haven't done it despite them. We do these things because of those losses.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's good.
In love for, What would be your little piece of advice?
I would love everyone to realize that their loved ones can still see and hear them, and they're a huge part of their lives. And if you're looking to get a sign from them,
I like that.
ask God to allow them to visit you in a comforting way, and then to state something specific to your loved one that you would recognize as a sign from them. For instance, a particular song or a butterfly or a dream visit. And this way, when it happens, you know you got your sign without any doubt.
Oh,
All
I
right.
like
Well,
that.
thank you, and thanks for watching the
Yes.
show today and for being on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And if you've lost hope, please lean on ours. Please lean on our guest today until you find your own.
somewhere. A raindrop on my window, a teddy bear, and I remember you. I remember your smile, your face, the way you move, and I can see you dancing. I can hear you laugh. Anything and everything take me back. It's who I am. It's what I love to do. Yeah, I remember you. Well, I've got pictures and videos, and I see them all the time. But my favorite memories, well, they're right here in my mind. 'Cause I can see you dancing. I can hear you laugh. Anything and everything can take me back. It's who I am. It's what I love to do. I remember you.